Good evening and welcome once again to another huge week of the Try Hard NRL betting podcast. And this week we preview round 6.
Guess what? I feel like I can't miss. I know it won't be far, but ain't nothing bigger than this. So just pass me the ball. You know you're looking at a winner, winner, winner. I can't miss, can't lose, can't miss. You know you're looking at a winner, winner, winner. 'Cause I'm a winner, yeah, I'm a winner.
And we certainly were last week. Absolutely a monstrosity of a week. Can you believe it?
You can't expect like this to keep going on. It's been an unbelievable ride. I mean, when was the last time we lost a bet? Do you remember?
It's been a long time. Oh, it's been a long time, man.
It has been so long since we lost a bet. And I mean, we won the last 2 bets of last week, and then this week, I can't
even count how many bets we won last week. It just didn't end.
Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7.
That's right. Thank you, LeBron. It was 7. I
think
remember
it was
now.
7.
Yeah, it was 7.
7 in a row last weekend, 9 in a row overall.
Unbelievable.
Everyone's asking, where can it end?
Yeah.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible.
Who knows? Thank you, KG.
And look, you can't expect, we both know as well as anyone that we're not going to go 7-0 every week. To be honest, like we'll take 4 and 3.
Absolutely.
That's going to win money for people. But we do like to think that we've got an edge and we love winning bets for the people.
Absolutely. And yeah, we've had a few new fans over the past week or so, and hopefully we can continue it on for you guys. Look, I'll tell you right now, it's going to be tough to have another week like that, but we'll endeavour to do so this week.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, if we go... I'll give it away now. We've got 5 best bets for you this week. We're not really slowing down. And if we go 4 and 1, our percentage will get worse.
Yeah.
That's how high we've set the bar for ourselves. Speaking of our fans, actually, I did get a quick message shot through from Luke in Brisbane. And he said, this was after I think we'd won about our 5th bet in a row last weekend. He said, you're spot on the money again. I love you guys. I'm leaving the margins behind and going for the lines.
Absolutely. I love that. It's really getting through to them.
Changing people's lives. So last weekend... I think it was 5 different games. We had 7 best bets on.
5 games, 7 different best bets.
You know, we've got to thank the Bulldogs.
Yep.
We've got to thank the Raiders, the Sharkies.
Good old
saw that coming?
Sharkies.
You heard it here first.
Yep.
And the Cowboys as well, another team that we kept the faith in. And an interesting point with all of those sides is that they were all underdogs, all catching points.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that what we sort of want to swing into in our Betting 101 segment?
Yeah, that's right. So Betting 101 today, we just want to say that it's not a coincidence that we bet a lot of underdogs and we take a lot of unders.
Yep, absolutely. And the reason being is that, look, when you have obviously a heavy favourite, you often want to go against what the public's doing because, obviously if a heavy favourite, the public's more likely to bet them, and therefore you're getting a little bit more value on the underdog. And the similar sort of thing with totals is, obviously you've watched games, you've watched all types of sports, and it translates into all different types of sports. Betting the under is usually the sharp play because all your mug punters out there, they love to watch points being scored, don't they?
I mean, look at that Titans-Sharks game where we had under 40. That was the most painful thing to watch. Betting an under and watching the game isn't fun.
Nope.
You're cheering for the defense the whole game. So for that reason, people gravitate towards betting overs. They like to bet on big-name teams to score a lot of points, and they like to bet on favourites to win.
That's exactly
and that's
right.
why you're going to just get that extra value a lot of the time taking underdogs. And the pod's a great example. We've only played a favourite once this whole season.
Once,
I think it was the Warriors, and that was only laying 1.5 points. And we haven't played over a single total this year.
Yeah, exactly. And often the bookies will set that total just a tad bit higher because they know that people like to bet the over.
That's right.
They set it too low, they'll just get pumped by people, and then they have to raise the line, and then they'll get hit the other way with the sharps betting the unders. So, yeah, I mean, we're not saying, obviously, bet the underdogs every single time. Obviously, you still have to pick your spots. But we tend to lean more towards the underdogs and more towards the game totals under.
100%. So as we've said, a hell of a weekend it was.
Big weekend.
I've got my first takeaway. We'll dive straight into our takeaways.
Yep.
And look, I want to take a moment to speak about the bunnies versus the dogs.
Oh no.
We took the points, and we've come out winners there.
Yep.
But I will admit that I had some money just on the Dogs to win. I really believed in the Dogs. I said last week in the pod, I thought the Dogs were the better side going into this match. And I still don't know how they didn't win. Okay, where do you want me to start? It was an 8-point try. I mean, in the first half, they had no ball. They're down 10-0. They score an 8-point try. In the second half, a try off a deflected kick that falls into their lap. They get a penalty from halfway when they're down 2, and he can kicks it from halfway, and then the icing on the cake, the penalty when they're just trying to challenge the field goal at the end, penalty from in front. You know, I read an interesting statistic that the Dogs were the first team since 1872 to win with 39% possession. They didn't even have the ball, and so that one hurt.
I feel for you, buddy. I do. Look, my takeaway, there was probably 2, I would say maybe even 3 of the best tries that I've seen all season. First of all, actually, the Storm had a couple. They had a ridiculous try where Slater picked up a bloody chip kick, and then they had 4 more passes before they actually scored the try. Unbelievable stuff.
Yeah, everyone was batting it on.
Yes, it was absolutely beastly. Another offload on the try line, basically. Korobidi being an absolute monster and just mowing down like 5 people to score that try.
Monster!
But the Tigers, holy Lanta.
Pat Richards.
Yeah, Pat Richards, 6-4 down with I think there was about 12 or 13 minutes left. And he's obviously falling out of touch, manages to get boot on the ball somehow, kick it into the field of play, and then get a try off that, and that swung the whole game.
He tiptoed on the tightrope.
Firstly, he tiptoed down the sideline. Yeah, unbelievable stuff, and then obviously they ended up being comfortable winners, but all those tries were scored in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's right, and 2 things that I would take away from that is Pat Richards is a massive part of that team.
He's a beast.
He just makes things happen, and for the Storm, that try was a well-executed try. I wouldn't say that was luck as much as it was that team. That's a team that's humming at the moment.
Yep.
You've got to be careful if you want to get out in front of them. Now, look, we want to dive into the games. As we said, we've got another big week. It doesn't stop. But before we do, we've got just a question from a fan that's come through. I think we can pull it up here now. We just want to spend a moment because this is linked to one more takeaway.
Yep. And that's from
Michael.
Yeah, from Michael Dwan here. We've got a question for you, gentlemen, from a diehard Sharks supporter.
Did you say shite?
I said Sharks supporter. Freudian slip. What did you guys think of young Jack Bird's first game at 5'8", and how/where would you put Barber in the 17 now that he's back from suspension?
Yeah, and my takeaway from this game is the Sharkies may have found a long-term solution here. This guy looks to be the real deal. You can just tell this guy's probably faster than Barber if you saw his highlights on the weekend, and he seems to be a more comfortable ball player than Barber.
I agree.
So now they've got a bit of a problem, and one option is to just turf Barber altogether. The guy hasn't really played well for 3 years.
You just can't really turf the guy.
What would you do?
You've almost got to see out Jack Bird at 5'8" and almost slot. I know Barber's coming off the bench in the next game, but you've almost got to slot him from the bench into fullback.
The Valentine Holmes played well.
Chuck Valentine Holmes on the wing or something like that. That guy is lightning.
Yeah, well, this is what I mean. They're starting to build weapons. I've always liked Flash Gordon.
Yep.
I mean, the problem with Barber on the bench is who does he come on for? Because all your backline players are meant to play 80 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to say, I think it's worth a shot playing him off the bench because this team has such a big bullying forward pack. They're starting to create combinations in the halves as we saw against the Roosters. They do have strike weapons in the backline with Holmes, Gordon, Jared Beale. And now you can bring Barber on potentially in the last 20 minutes when people are getting tired.
Yeah.
All
he might have the chance to cut through those tired forwards sort of in the back end of the half.
Look, I'm going to have to overreact here.
Yep.
And, right, tell me if I'm crazy.
Okay.
Can the Sharks win the comp?
Nope.
I'm saying...
You are crazy.
They've got, like, that forward pack, man. That forward pack, you've got, like, Luke Lewis, Paul Gallen, Fafita have all played for Australia. You've got Hyington, who's played for Great Britain. You've got Wade Graham up and coming. On the bench, you've got Bukoya, Tupou. That forward pack's the best in the comp for me. And that back line, what I saw on the weekend, they're starting to get the combinations together. You've got the strike weapons. I think this Sharkies team's an actual contender.
Alright, I'm not even going to give you the time of day with that
You're
comment.
not drinking the Kool-Aid with me?
Not drinking the Kool-Aid.
All right,
Sorry, Dwayne.
I'm a massive Sharkies believer, Dwayne. That's the answer for you there. Why don't we start by previewing Sharkies Knights, which is on Friday night?
Yep. Let's start with the Sharkies hosting the Knights. Now, Cronulla are actually moved into favouritism for this one. They're laying anywhere between 1.5 and 2 points, with the total actually a low game total at 36.5.
And we actually spoke about this game last week when
when
Pete from Kedron pointed out that the odds seemed a little funny, and I said, look, Pete made a great point.
Yep.
But there was one scenario where those odds were actually right, and that was a scenario where the Sharkies cause a boil over against the Roosters, and the Knights don't take care of business against the Dragons. And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what happened. Now you do have Cronulla, who's actually, as you said, a slight favourite at home, and I think it's fair. I have total respect for the Knights. We've said before on the pod that that's a really good football team. That's a hell of a back line. I've told you how much I love the Sharkies. We've got the Sharkies at home. Too much respect for both teams. I think it will be an awesome game. I can't really play either side.
I agree, and you can't really play either side. I think we're going to have to let this one play out. But one point I wanted to bring up, and this is a sort of a bit of betting theory that you can use that runs across all sports. Now, this is a proven theory. Now, they say that when a team is on a big losing streak, and then they break that losing streak, they quite often come out and win the next game as well. And they say the exact same is for teams on a big winning streak. It happens in all sorts of sports. They're on a big win streak. They lose that game. It's a bit of a letdown for them. They're not perfect anymore, and then they come out and actually lose the next game. So this is actually a perfect storm in favour of Cronulla in this case. But I do think that Newcastle actually has the better team. So I'm going to stay away from this one. Plus, the lines come a little bit in favour of Cronulla. So this is a stay away from me.
Yeah, you might be tempted to take the points with Newcastle in a tight game, but also Bo Scott's out with an ankle injury, and he is one of their best forwards as well. Happy to stay away.
Had to stay away from us. Now, a game I really like, obviously, the Broncos hosting the Roosters. Now, you can find the Bronx anywhere from sort of +1 to +2. With the game total hovering between 39 and 42.
5 weeks ago, you wouldn't have thought this could be a top 4 clash.
No.
At Suncorp Stadium, going to be in attendance as well. Are you going to the game?
I may or may not. I do have to work the next day, which is a stain to me.
Yeah, so do I. But I'll spend $20 and go to the game too, I think.
True.
Should be a hell of a game. Brisbane's, their hallmark has been their defence. Every single week, they're showing up. They're fighting hard for Bennett. The Roosters obviously off a disappointing loss. Yep. I'm not going to take too much away from the Roosters because I thought that was the Sharks' season on the line, and I do have a self-professed love for the Sharkies.
And they came home strong. They did.
That's right.
They got it to within 2 points.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until the Sharkies burrowed over for a try late in the game.
Yep. Now Roosters are without Aiden Guerra. He is a really promising back rower, but they do welcome back Jared Warrior-Hargraves, and I think they're really going to need his muscle to match up with the forwards. So for me, I can see a pretty even forward battle. I've got to admit, like Corey Parker, Matt Gillette, Sam Thaiday, Alex Glenn, the Broncos have a lot of muscle in their forward pack. I think the Roosters match them there, and I think the Roosters have too much class in the back line with Origin experienced halves and some match winners in the outside backs.
I agree as well, and I think the Broncos are getting a little too much love from punters for my liking. Obviously, they're on a bit of a run here, but the Roosters, I mean, from top to bottom, they are the better side. I think it's going to be a little bit of a forward battle. I think it will be low scoring, but I think that the Roosters will get out on top. And laying 1 point, that's cheap. You basically need them to win the game. That's all. But I tell you what else I like. I think the Roosters forward pack will slowly just grind Brisbane down. I don't think Brisbane's going to have as many scoring opportunities as they did with the Titans last week. The Titans made a lot of errors and gave Brisbane some good field position. I like the under for the Brisbane total. It's ranging sort of between 19 and 20.5. If I need them to score, basically 22 or more points to lose that bet, I'm going to take that every day of the week.
Yeah, that's a good point. I saw that as well around 20, and I thought, how does Brisbane get 20 points in this game? Like, let's not forget that this Roosters team has just locked people down the last 2 seasons. It's one of the best defences in the comp, and I think you're right. I said it last week. We need to pump the brakes a little bit on Brisbane. I'm more than happy to see them keep winning, but they haven't really shown me a lot yet. I think they've been a bit lucky in the situations they've found themselves in and their opponents that they've played so far. Brisbane's a good side, but the Roosters are still a better side. I'm with you. So we're taking Roosters -1.
Yep.
I think that's the best.
I'm
So
happy
if you
to make
like
that
the
a best
Roosters,
bet.
you want to try and find -1 if you can. It's between -1 and -1.5.
Yep.
And Broncos under 20.5 points.
Yep, I like that. I'm happy to make both of those a best bet. I really love the Roosters in this spot. I think the Broncos win last week was a bit of a phony one. Moving on to the next game, we've got the Eels hosting the Titans. Now the Eels are laying 6.5 to 7 points, and we've also got the game total at 40 to 41.
Yeah, and I think this is a game that I'm trying to talk you into. I still believe in the Gold Coast. They haven't really shown me anything this season for me to warrant my belief. It's really just the players that are in that team, really looking at that back row with Ryan James, Greg Bird, and Nate Miles in the front row, and who am I missing in the back row?
I'll tell you what, I watched that game last week, and the Titans were rolling forward. They were getting 60 metres every set, and they were absolutely punishing the Broncos. The problem was they kept dropping the ball. Every single time in the opposition 20 they were dropping the ball. I probably saw about six times that happened in the first half alone. So I think that should have been a much closer game. I think if we're catching more than a converted try here with the Titans, then we should... I would take that. I don't really believe in the Eels too much.
And of course, a player that I couldn't think of was the Coke Train himself. And that guy's a guy with so much ability. He really should be a match winner. At the end of the day, I think it's a close game. I think Eels probably win. But 6.5 points for two teams that are both struggling and both have a few talented forwards, we're going to take the +6.5 every time.
Yep, definitely.
So
I'm happy to make that
a best bet. Gold Coast
Right.
Titans +6.5.
That's three already. Now we're moving on. Over the ditch, we got the Warriors hosting the Tigers. Now the Warriors laying anywhere between 7.5 and 8.5 points. The game total hovering between 41 and 42.5.
Yeah, and it's not often. I said before, you've got to be brave to take on the Warriors in New Zealand. They didn't have a great performance in Melbourne, although that Melbourne team is really starting to fire on all cylinders. But geez, this West team is for real.
I agree.
Just, they showed me so much in that game against the Dogs 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Because I really believe in the Dogs. I think the Dogs, when fully healthy, are the best team in the comp. Now, the Tigers should have beaten the Dogs. The
They should have
Tigers were
beaten them.
up 16, I think.
They were up 16. Yeah, they were up 22.
22-6 at
Yeah,
one stage.
something like
And,
that.
of course, they ended up losing in Golden Point.
Yep.
And that was without Aaron Woods, Pat Richards, and Dean Hallertau.
Yep.
Those three back in the side. It was a tight game for 70 minutes against Para. They did pull that one out, and I don't think that was the Tigers' best performance yet.
Definitely not. Not until the last 10 minutes, but they showed some class in those last 10 minutes. And with everyone back, this Tigers team, I think, is a dark horse to make the 8. And I mean, if we're getting 8.5 points, New Zealand is good at home, but they're still not fully healthy.
And we'll contrast this Tigers team to the Warriors, which is still a bit beaten up. I mean, their best forward might be Sam Rapira, and their second best backline player, Sam Tompkins. They're both out. The Fish is still out. It's a good time to take on New Zealand. I think New Zealand is a team we're going to make some money on in the mid and late rounds of the season when they get healthy and other teams get the injury bug.
Yep.
But right now, you can't tell me that New Zealand is any better than West.
I
Now,
agree.
grant you that it's in Auckland, but that home field advantage isn't worth 8.5 points.
Absolutely
It's
not.
a lot of points for a young team that's growing with confidence every week. I think we have to make West the best bet as well.
I agree. Yep, I'm happy to make West the best bet. And that's what we were talking about a little bit earlier with this young side. Sometimes they just need a few notches under their belt, a few wins to get that confidence up, and that's what the Tigers have now. So I'm looking for them to, possibly even win that game, but to at least keep it close. So that's the first 4 games of the round under our belt.
Yeah, and we're trying to zoom through this week, make this an even shorter and sharper pod. We're about to do the fastest ever rapid fire questions, but first, a quick word from our sponsor.
This episode of the Try Hard NRL Betting Podcast is proudly brought to you by F-Sanity, the Performance Athletic Association. Check out our new sporting apparel on Instagram today.
Really, really good sporting apparel.
Absolutely
Let me
great
tell
sporting
you.
apparel, and we've been wearing a bit of his gear over the past week or
I
so.
can tell you, it's just unbelievable the less amount of sweat this guy's dropping these days.
Well, and the thing is also, they ran out of extra large, so I had to get a large, and it is tight. I'll tell you that.
I think that's just your muscles showing there, mate.
Yeah, maybe I've gotten bigger.
Why don't we get into rapid fire questions? We'll see how quickly we can do these. And our first question is from Adam, the bareback bandit. And he's asking, tryhards, how much should I be betting on each bet so I don't have to eat Weet-Bix for dinner?
Oh, well, I think we've actually heard from Adam before in the past, but, I mean, the thing that you have to answer yourself is, do you want to just not be eating Weet-Bix for dinner, or do you want to be eating crab legs and lobster for dinner? And that's what you really need to answer yourself. If you do just want to avoid the Weet-Bix and have just a regular dinner, I'd be suggesting a minimum of about $100 on each best bet. If you had been doing that for the season so far, you'd be up approximately $1,100.
That's right. You could have just put in $100 to start the season, and if you just played that through our games,
Yep,
you're up over $1,000.
Yep,
I think
absolutely
you'd
right.
originally suggested $50,000 per
I
bet.
did suggest originally $50,000, but if he's worried about eating Weet-Bix for dinner, I don't know if he's got that sort of cash in reserves.
No, fair enough. Although if you had played $50,000 on each of our best bets, you'd be up over $500,000.
Correct.
You can't argue
Yes,
about that.
Correct. So now we've got another question from Anonymous. Now he says, which team currently outside the top 8 will make it by the end of the year?
I'll give you an easy and short answer. That's the Panthers.
Oh, yep, true.
Next, I've got a question from Evan in Sacramento, and he said, "Hey Pod, congratulations on the perfect run last week. But after a dismal 0-3 from mixed picks on the horses and 1 from 7 on Brogues Rogues, do you think it's about time that these Waterhousos got scratched?"
He says Waterhousos.
And he's put a horse emoji at the end, which I've enjoyed.
Scratched and horse emoji.
That's quite clever.
That actually leads quite well into another one of our questions. Dylan from the Gold Coast. Now he says, can someone please explain to me how your resident horse racing, in quotation marks, expert gives his 3 best tips for the weekend and can't even get one to run a place?
Yeah, look, it wasn't pretty for mixed picks, so it was a bit of a dismal weekend. But I've got to say, hold on, Dylan, let's not judge too harshly. I mean, the guy went 3 of 4 his first 2 weeks.
Correct.
Last week we did get an especially heavy downpour, and knowing Mick as I do, I just think the guy's not really used to wet conditions.
No, he's not surrounded by it all too often.
Now, this is a question, I've got a few questions. I'm just going to try and summarise.
We did get a lot of questions. We only had to pick the best.
Yeah, now there was a very common theme. It says, this one's for Alex. How big is your head?
Well, it's a tough one to answer. It depends on what they're talking about. I mean, do they want weight, volume, circumference, diameter? It's a tough one to answer.
I don't know how you'd answer that, actually.
I'd say, the only answer that I could give is that bobbleheads were basically made. They looked at me and then made them, just shrunk them down a little bit. Now, I've got another one here. It's actually Chenny from Bankstown. This is more of a statement than a question, but he says, that penalty on James Graham that decided the Dogs match was ridiculous.
Yeah, and I've already unleashed my tirade about that game, but as much as it pains me to admit this, and as much as it costs me more than I care to admit, that was a penalty. You can't hit the leg of a kicking player, and that's a pretty clear rule, and I mean, I can't blame James Graham for being a little over-exuberant when the game was on the line, but it's cost him, 1 game plus another 5 that
games.
he's out.
Yep.
And I think that Bulldogs team is so loaded that they can play well without a forward like Graham.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just him. They're
decimated.
Yeah, they lost Cassiano, they lost Clemmer, and that's going to be hard to recover from.
Yeah,
In
definitely.
more ways than one. And finally, I've got another question. I think it's from the same anonymous questioner earlier. Which team that's currently in the top 8 won't be there at the end of the year?
Oh, that's fairly easy for me as well. I'd have to say the Storm.
Yeah, they've had an easy run so
They
far.
certainly have. They've had a very easy first five
I think the
5
schedule
rounds.
might not be this week, but I think the schedule will get a bit tougher for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get back into the schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. So next up, we've got the Panthers hosting Manly. Panthers laying what's predominantly about a -6 at the moment. Game total sitting between 38 and 39.
Just leads me quickly to another point I wanted to make. We make our picks on a Wednesday. We release the pod on a Wednesday. That means that we might get more information through the week. We might learn a bit more.
Yep.
By Thursday and Friday last week, I loved the Raiders. I wish we made the Raiders a best bet, but at the time we hadn't quite come around. But when I looked a little closer, I realised this Manly team is just beat up.
Yeah.
And that's the same way I feel about them this week. But I'm just not going to lay a try with a Penrith team that really hasn't found its way without Jamie Soward and also missing a couple other key forwards. So for me, this one's a pass.
Yeah, they're still struggling a little bit. And obviously, Manly off a bad loss. They'll want to bounce back a little bit here. Look, if I'm to lean a side to win the game, it'd be the Panthers. But to win it by more than a converted try, it's too risky for me to stay away from me as well. Next up, we got the Raiders hosting the Storm. Now, the Raiders, you can get anywhere between 5 and 5.5 points, and the over-under is about 42.5.
And the Raiders are pretty much going to give you the same thing every week. Ricky Stewart, Sticky Ricky's got him fighting hard, but there's just not a lot of talent. So it's really, you've got to find a good spot to play the Raiders, and last week really would have been one against Manly. This one, not so much. Melbourne's fully healthy, although possibly a question mark over Slater. But I'm not going to get out in front of this Melbourne Storm team because I think they're really starting to click.
Yep.
Really starting to hum a little bit. So for me, but by the same token, I don't want to lay 5 points with a Storm team that doesn't have the same forward pack intensity and quality that some of the other big guns have.
Yeah, absolutely. And Melbourne has played a soft schedule so far. If I was to lean aside, I'd probably lean towards the Storm less than a converted try. But I don't trust them that much. And Canberra could get a bit of confidence from that win against Manly last week. I agree with you. It's a stay away from me. Now, next up, we've got the St George Illawarra Dragons hosting the Bulldogs, the beat-up Bulldogs. And this game's actually a pick'em.
Yeah, and I got ahead of myself earlier and already explained a little bit about the woes of the Bulldogs. Adding to that the loss of Brett Morris as well. My instinct was to take the Bulldogs in this game because I love the Bulldogs and I think they're such a loaded team, but they've actually just got too many injuries for me. James Graham is such an inspirational leader. I'm not going to be overly surprised if they find a way to win this game, but we've been telling you on the pod that the Dragons are a good side too. Why can't I play the Dragons? I'm just waiting for them to get Dan Hunt and Ben Creagh back in the side, and then I think that's a really complete side. So for now, I do see it as close to a coin toss. That's why I think the line's right. You got to leave that one alone.
Yeah, I think it's about right as well. St George coming off a big win last week, obviously shutting out the Knights. But then you've got Canterbury on the flip side that just, they've just been absolutely decimated this week. And, I guess, what can you really say? It's too close to call for me. You don't really know what Bulldog side's going to turn up. Obviously, they're decimated. It takes a little while to get used to losing, five of your starting 17. So I'm going to stay away from this one. Now, the final Monday night game. Now, the Cowboys have actually played 3 in a row now on the Monday night. We got the Rabbitohs hosting the Cowboys. Now, this line we can see anywhere from sort of 1.5 to 2. South Sydney laying points, and the over-under about 40 to 41.
Yeah, and we've been on the Cowboys the last 2 weeks.
We've been riding the Cowboys train when no one else believed in them.
That's right. And it goes to show that teams can turn it around, and in JT we did trust. And they put on a clinic last Monday night. But let's not get carried away with the Cowboys either. I think there still are some holes in this side and still some deficiencies. Looking at the Bunnies, obviously a massive loss in Reynolds. He kicks every goal and he's a playmaker and a leader in the halves. I think it's a little bit more pressure on Keary, but they do welcome back John Sutton into the team. I think couldn't have picked a better time for him to come back.
Definitely.
Let's not forget, these are still the champs. My one question mark is Greg Inglis, because I know he tweaked his knee on Friday, but we've looked closely.
Everything I've
every
read.
indication is that he'll play. So if I only have to lay a 1.5 with the champs at home against the North Queensland side that's maybe riding a little too high now, then I'm going to do it. I'm happy to make Bunnies a best bet.
Yeah, definitely. And the Rabbits at home laying a 1.5. Obviously, the Cowboys have had a couple of good wins over the past 2 weeks. All the public's riding on that train as well. Some people have hopped off the Rabbitohs bandwagon, so you're getting a little bit of extra value there too. But basically, they just need to win this game, -1.5 at home. I think they can do it. And yeah, I'm happy to make that a best bet as well.
Yeah, just one other thing. I mean, I said everyone knows it. Everyone's saying the Dogs were robbed. Everyone's saying South Sydney were lucky. So people aren't giving South Sydney any credit. I'll give them a little bit of credit. If they had 39% possession and only conceded 17 points against a pretty awesome Bulldogs team, that says something. And they're always going to show up defensively, and that's another reason why I feel good about extending our unbeaten Monday night betting streak.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Rabbits -1.5 is going to be another best bet. Just to add to that, I mean, we've talked about this in all different sports over the past few years, and one of the other betting theories is that when a team has a lucky win, they often sort of turn up for the next game and put in a good showing. They feel like they've sort of gotten away with one there, and they really show up the next game. They sort of almost treat it like a loss.
And no better example than the Cowboys pulling one out of the fire against the Storm, and then turning up next week and winning by 30.
Just a clinical performance, yeah.
Yeah, so 5 best bets for you guys.
Yep.
Let's keep
Big
the winning
week.
streak alive.
Big week once again.
Really quickly recap those 5?
Yeah, absolutely. So on Friday night, we've got a couple for you. Firstly, in the Roosters-Bronx game, we've got the Roosters laying 1 point. Then we've got the Broncos team total to go under 20.5. The next bet we've got is the Titans. We're taking plus 6.5 points there. The Tigers flying across the ditch, getting 8.5 points against the Warriors. And then on Monday night, to cap it all off, we need the Rabbits to win by 2 or more. We're laying 1.5 points. That's the 5 best bets for the week.
Awesome. Well, let's just keep this train rolling.
Yep.
Keep the wins coming.
Keep the wins coming. We'll try our best. Obviously, it'll be very tough to go 5-0 again, but we'll endeavour to do that once again. So, yeah, once again, thanks for listening, everyone. And please
Please.
gamble responsibly.